Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about building interiors and player housing. Recently on ISC, well, it wasn't really an ISC, it was a Journey to 4.0 video. They kind of went over their plan for building interiors. So I wanted to make a video about that today. I've just got a slideshow of some of the concept images that they showed during this ISC going in the background for you guys. But largely this is just going to be a talking video. It's going to be a theory crafting video. I know not everybody's into that, but I kind of want to discuss some of the implications to what they talked about on this Journey to 4.0 episode with you guys here today. So if you like videos like this, hit the like button. If you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe and the bell icon so you can be notified when I upload another video. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So to kick things off, I saw a couple of comments on the video and a couple of posts on Reddit kind of talking about it, and I wanted to go over those in today's video, mainly starting with the idea that these locations are going to be instanced. So I saw a comment underneath CIG's video saying that, you know, these are going to be instance locations, that the windows are going to have GIFs playing outside of them, and I'm not entirely sure everybody knows how CIG does their building interiors, but it's kind of something we already have right now, and building interiors are not instanced. Now, that's not to say that all building interiors are not instanced. The player habs are, I believe, instanced, or something is going on. That's why you can't go back to your hab, and they want to change that moving forward. So right now we do have habs in the game, apartments that you wake up in when you log into the game, but these are not persistent. So essentially, once you leave these habs, the door closes behind you and you can't enter it again. So the habs that we have now are in a way instanced, but CIG plans to do away with this and go to persistent habs. So what does that mean? That essentially means that these locations are going to persist. You can go back to them once you leave your apartment. You can re-enter it, you can decorate it, you can put things in it. It is your apartment. But there are ramifications to this. So essentially, if you look out the window, you can see other players. Other players can see you. If they look through the window, you're actually there in the game. Now, this is possible primarily because of persistent entity streaming and silver meshing. Right now, I don't think that they can feasibly implement persistent habs and hangers because the budget for the amount of entities they can have on the server is kind of maxed out right now. That's why they had to get rid of Delamar. But basically an entire star system is being managed by one server. When server meshing comes online, an entire server is just going to manage one planet. What does that mean? Well, that means that now this server has a bunch more entities that it can stream in and out. So that essentially means that CIG can populate planets with a ton more content. Essentially, an entire star system's worth of content can now exist on a single planet and its moons. That's huge. That means that, yes, we can get building interiors. Yes, we can get new shops, new locations, new mission locations, and the game is going to grow a lot. Right now, one server can hold 100 players and one star system, but if one server is just managing one planetary star system and 100 players, the amount of content that you can have goes up a lot. Okay, so I'm not saying that, you know, one star system is gonna balloon to 400 players each, but the goal is when server meshing comes online, there are more players in these locations, and there are more locations on planets for these players to go to. And it was a big issue that I talked about in my Lorville rework, is that right now I don't think spaceports are designed to hold thousands of players per server. I mean, if you look at the spaceports, they have roughly 20 hangars. And if there are 2,000 people, let's just say 1,000, a nice even round number, not too bad. Let's say there's 1,000 people in Stanton. 20 hangars per landing zone is just really not going to cut it. You're going to need more places to interact with. And that's one of the things that they showed on this Journey to 4.0 video, is that there might be smaller ports or smaller hangar areas for these buildings, so you don't have to go to the spaceport. You can go to the hangars that are associated with the buildings that you want to go to, and that will kind of reduce the traffic at spaceports for different uses. Okay, again, they're going to also re-engineer the landing pads on top of the buildings to make, you know, player traversal a lot easier. But ultimately, these are going to be physicalized, persistent locations. These are not going to be instanced. These locations are essentially going to be copied across all the shards. So every shard you go to will essentially have the same thing. But what does that mean for the players? Well, it means that apartments are going to be specific. A persistent apartment means that your apartment more than likely exists on every shard. So your apartment is a unique location. Right now, apartments are not unique locations. I'll spawn in an apartment on one shard, somebody else can spawn in the exact same apartment on another shard. A persistent hab or a persistent hangar is not like that. It is persistent, so that means that all the shards essentially have the exact same thing. Well, let's take it back for a second. If you kind of look at what CIG said, their buildings are too small, so they want to enlarge the buildings. Why would they do this if the interiors were instanced? Okay, if the interiors were instanced, you wouldn't need to make the building larger, because once you enter the door, the player will just teleport into a new game instance. That interior does not need to fit inside the building. The only reason they would increase the size of the building is because they need the interior to physically be inside that building. And so a persistent interior is going to be inside that building. And you can see it now. We have some interiors of buildings right now, and the interiors are physically inside the buildings. A lot of times you might glitch through a building and you will fall out of it. And what happens is that you fall outside the building. So it's kind of proof and evidence that that interior is in the game space, is persisting in the PU. So that kind of means that there is going to be a real estate market in Star Citizen. And this is something a lot of players has not really talked about too much before. But essentially, if apartments are unique, that means that if I own an apartment, I'm the only person who owns that specific apartment in the entire world. So that carries a inherent value to it. Okay, now don't get me wrong, not everybody is gonna want to live in cities. Not everyone is gonna want an apartment. Some people might prefer to live in their spaceship and not own any property at all. That is an option. And I mean, if you own an 890 Jump or a Banu Merchantman, you might want to live on that ship. And that's something you're going to be able to do. But there are going to be players who want to own property, who want to own an apartment in a city, maybe because it has close proximity to certain missions, maybe it has close proximity to shopping, so they can arm up and get ready to do other missions. Maybe it's in close proximity to some type of activity that goes on. Maybe it's close to a racetrack, like how Lawville is close to that racetrack there. Maybe they want an apartment so they have an easy spawn point that's close to the convention center for when IAE and Fleet Week come around. There are a lot of reasons why someone would want an apartment in a city, even if they own the ship. Like, I don't own just one ship, and even if I wanted to live on my ship, like, I own a Abandoned Merchantman, and even if I wanted to live in that ship, that doesn't mean that I wouldn't also own an apartment. Because I have a Merchantman, I have a Nautilus, I have a Vulture, I have a C1, and I have multiple ships because I want to do different things. And so someone who has multiple ships, they would have an apartment just so they could have some place in the city. An apartment is also a place where it's a little bit safer to keep certain things in your inventory. Because ships are destructible, because it's a full loot system. When you lose your ship, you lose everything on it, and that is a steep price to pay. If you're planning on making your ship your home and your ship blows up, you lose your entire inventory. So I know there's some people saying that they want to live on this ship and they don't want to buy an apartment. They will more than likely buy an apartment to keep a lot of the inventory that they don't want to travel around with. Like, I have a Vandal mask, for instance. There's no way I'm taking that on a ship. I'm more than likely just going to leave that at my apartment and take it out for special occasions. I know a lot of people might not like that idea, but having an apartment is a safe and secure inventory location, because your apartment is going to be in an armistice zone. So more than likely, this is going to be a policed area. I know they might change the laws surrounding armistice zones, especially in Stanton. The security level may be reduced a little bit, so there is more combat gameplay in cities. But for all intents and purposes, this is a locked location that only you own, that can store a larger inventory than a smaller ship, for instance. Okay, so this is definitely something that a lot of people are going to want to have. So between the rarity of this being a persistent location that is shared across all shards, and this being a secure storage location for your inventory that you don't want to travel around with. And on top of it, CIG has also said that they want to create more locations, more ships that feel less lived in, so the player can decorate it themselves. This is a potential location where you can customize yourself. I don't know the level of customization that these locations are going to have, but it's pretty obvious by what CIG said in their video is that they want a specific architecture, art style, and design style to each of those locations. So choosing to have your apartment in Lawville, it will have a certain aesthetic to it that you might enjoy that doesn't get translated in the ship. Like for instance, if you like New Babbage or Crusader, these locations, these apartments will have a design language that reflects that, and a lot of people like these design languages and would want to live in that space. Okay, so you have customizability, you have a secure storage location, you have the fact that this is persistent across all other things. There is a lot of value in owning real estate in Star Citizen. Now, the next question becomes, and this is where I want to talk about the Reddit post, is that someone posted on Reddit that CIG seems like they might start focusing on selling property, selling apartments, selling land claims, to add another monetization loop that's not just spaceships. And I've kind of said this in the past before too. Star Citizen selling concept ships and spaceships um is great for the beginning of the game, but long term it's potentially problematic because these larger spaceships take a really long time to develop. You look at the Banu Merchantman, and it's been in the backlog for a very long time, and it's recently been put on the back burner yet again. So the reality is, even with an 800 person developer team, these are very detailed spaceships, and they take a long time to design and develop. And if you're selling 10 a year, the backlog is just going to continue growing. Now, if you create a couple interior modules, so you can create different floor plans for apartments, and then you just populate them, that's a lot. Populate them procedurally to persist in the interiors of buildings. That is a lot easier to maintain. That is a lot easier to help them fund the game that way. Okay, so there are over 4 million Star Citizens, and if you do the math, it could add up quick. So then the question is, how much are these apartments gonna be? Okay, CIG has sold land claims in the past for $50, and to me that seems like kind of a sweet spot. Now realistically, there might be a price range depending on the type of apartment you want to get, but more than likely, I believe, for in the spirit of fairness, I don't think CIG is going to make it a system where there's like 5 penthouses and only 5 people can have these penthouses. I feel like there'll be a lot of backlash to that. What I think more than likely is going to happen is that you're going to have buildings that have specific apartment layouts. So essentially, you'll have a 3-bedroom apartment floor plan in a specific building, and then you might have a 2-bedroom apartment floor plan in a specific building, and then you have a studio apartment floor plan in a specific building. And this building might have 50 apartments in it, and every city has a building like that. That's kind of the way I outlined it in my Lorville rework, where you had a high-end neighborhood and a low-end neighborhood, and people could choose to live where they want to, and all the buildings in that neighborhood would essentially just be the same apartment. Where the customizability comes in is how you decorate the interior of it, but the layout is essentially the same. So you have like hundreds of quote-unquote penthouses. It's not like, oh, there's only 5 penthouses. So you don't run into a Final Fantasy 14 situation where the housing situation is just chaotic and there's not enough to go around. Star Citizen is a big game, a much bigger game than Final Fantasy 14. No offense to anybody who loves Final Fantasy 14, but when you take into account the size of a planet and all the real estate potential that you have, there's absolutely no reason to have a real estate crisis in Star Citizen. There's just way too many buildings and way too many interiors. Every single person who plays this game could live on ArchCorp, and there would still be apartments to go around. You know what I mean? There's just that much space out there. And when it comes to owning land claims, it's even more. I think somebody did the math. Every single person in Star Citizen, every single person who has a Star Citizen account could live on Microtech. Every single person. That's just how big this game is. And you have not just Stanton, you have Pyro, you have Nyx, you have Odin, you have Terra. All of that land, you can claim it. You can put an outpost there. You can put a refinery, a player-owned refinery there. You can put a player-owned store there. You can fly your ship wherever you want. It's big. I don't think that there's going to be a real estate crisis, quote-unquote real estate crisis in Star Citizen. There's just way more land and way more real estate than there are players right now. If every single gamer bought Star Citizen and wanted property in the game, they could because we have 4 million accounts right now. A lot of that is duplicates. People have multiple accounts. I have multiple accounts to gift to family members and other things. Sometimes, during a sale, I'll pick up an extra account to gift to a friend or something like that. So there's not just people. Realistically, there might be like 2 or 3 million actual individual unique players. And so I mean, if this game went up to 10 million, you'd have Houston, Microtech, and ArchCorp. People wouldn't be able to fill it. Realistically, you wouldn't be able to fill it. So I don't think that's something that should be concerned about. Now, if you want to talk about price, I also don't think that's something you should be concerned about. $50 for a 4 squared kilometer land claim is pretty reasonable in my opinion. I know that might sound crazy, spending $50 to buy land in a video game. What has the world come to? It's easy to think that, but realistically, Star Citizen is not a regular game. It's being crowdfunded. So the money that you give CIG goes into the development of the game. And I keep saying this, it's not like buying a finished game at a box price and then the money you give the developers essentially just goes into the developer's pocket, because they already spent the money making the game. They got an investment from people. They got an investment from, a publisher or something like that. They spent that investment money on developing the game. Then they release the game and they make that money back to pay back the investor, the publisher, to pay back themselves by selling the game. Okay? Star Citizen is not developed like that. Star Citizen is developed where players fund the development of the game. CIG uses that money on everything, on Squadron 42, on paying developers, on studio space, on concept art. Everything that the backers give them goes to developing the game. So they have to essentially create sustainable monetization streams. And I said that in my Star Citizen's monetization is not that bad video. And realistically, these are going to be locations that CIG more than likely will make purchasable in-game. Just like land claims. When CIG made land claims available to purchase with real money, they stated clearly that yes, you'll be able to purchase land claims with real money, but you will also be able to purchase land claims with in-game credits. The same exact system works for spaceships. You can buy a spaceship you can buy 890 Jump for $1,000 real dollars, or you can buy 890 Jump for 32 million in-game credits. So essentially the way Star Citizen works is that if you don't want to grind in-game for this item, you can spend real money on it. If you don't want to spend real money on it, you can grind for in-game credits to buy this thing. So in my personal opinion, I believe that if CIG makes apartments available to purchase on the store, they will also make it purchasable in-game with in-game credits. I would not be at all surprised if you can buy an apartment with in-game credits. And I think that's a good thing, because it will give people a goal, a kind of progression. You start off the game, you just have an Aurora, you make enough money, you can buy an apartment in a city that you like. So I would be excited to use in-game credits to buy an apartment in-game. And it's again, I would not be at all surprised if CIG did something like that. Allowed people who didn't want to grind for the credits to buy it on the store, and allowed people who don't want to buy in the store to buy in-game. To me, I think that's a good system. So basically just going over everything that we've covered today. Not these locations, I don't believe they'll be instanced. I believe they will be persistent, which means that they will be shared on different shards. It means that yes, going back to that for a second, the locations will more than likely be shared on every shard, but the items in the locations won't be. So for instance, if you leave a cup in the lobby of an apartment and then you go to another shard, that cup won't be in the lobby of your apartment anymore. But your apartment will have a inventory storage system, so that items that you leave in your apartment will stay and be shared across different shards. CIG basically said that there's a stow and stow system of items. So for instance, if you leave an item on your ship and you log out, the game will stow that item, and when you log back in, it will unstow it because you own your spaceship. So I believe that apartments will essentially work like that. So you could leave a coffee cup in your apartment, go to a different shard, that cup will still be in your apartment. But if you leave a cup in the lobby of your apartment and you go to a different shard, that cup won't be there because you're in a different shard. You don't own the lobby essentially. So the inventory, you don't have an inventory for the lobby that will stow that cup essentially. I could be wrong, but I believe that's how the system works, and I believe that's how CIG will implement it with these new apartments and these new landing locations. Now, when it comes to mission content in these locations, I'm not entirely sure, but these would be good locations, again, as they said, for investigations. Like you see in the picture behind me right now, these would be good locations for box delivery missions, and I think other players have talked about it before. Perhaps, you want to purchase something in game and you have another player deliver it for you, Amazon delivery simulator. People have said it before, deliver boxes. I think it would be very cool if CIG implemented a postal system. So for instance, you want to buy something, you want to send it to your friend, you could put it in one of the yellow Covalex boxes, and maybe they have an address and you can send this box to their address. I think that would be very cool gameplay that they could add. But all of this stuff is enabled by PES. So realistically, I don't think we're going to see this year. These building interiors 4.0, I feel like that's something that's probably going to come in 2024, just to help people set expectations. And I think some people expected building interiors this year. Absolutely not. I don't think that's going to happen. But that's just my opinion. I think that this is something that they definitely need silver meshing technology to be able to implement the way they're talking about it. And if they're going to adjust all of the buildings and landing zones to be able to have building interiors, that means that they're going to iterate on the city. So even though we're getting Lorville 2.0, Lorville still might change a little bit, or certain buildings might change. Again, I don't know if they're going to put interiors in every building. They have this new window texture with a parallax effect that, when you fly past it, it kind of looks like the building has an interior. So I think they're going to not completely scrap that technology. I think there are certain buildings that will still be like that. There will be empty husks that have this texture in the window, but there might be some quote unquote hero buildings or hero locations where player habs might be, where mission content might be, and there might be like a dozen or 24 buildings in cities that have interiors, versus a main area and all the buildings are fake. So you might have a situation where there's a main area and 5 other neighborhoods and all the other buildings are fake. So realistically, I don't particularly think every building is going to get an interior, but I think a lot of buildings are going to get interiors, and I think it's a good thing. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I thought it was a really good exploration into what CIG wants. I think it's a good thing to have discussions about it. I don't think it's an inherently bad thing for CIG to sell these apartments, to sell land claims. Again, CIG has always made these things available to purchase with in-game money. It's just because they're funding the game, to the backers, I think it's a good thing to give people the opportunity to buy real money to support the project if they don't want to grind for the item. But players who do want to grind for the item and spend the time, really personalizing this space, I think they're going to make it available to buy with in-game money. I almost have no doubt that they're going to do that. I'm very confident that they will make that they won't make it exclusively on the store. I haven't seen CIG do that ever. Even with the subscriber items, you can find them in loot boxes. Yes, there's a period where you have to wait before it gets added to the game, but we're in alpha right now. So when the game goes live, that stuff is just going to be already in the loot box table. So I mean, again, subscribers are paying $10 and $20 a month to get access to this stuff, and it's stuff that you can just find in loot boxes. So I ultimately think that's a good thing. I don't think that CIG is gonna make it completely a store thing. I think they're absolutely gonna make it available to purchase in game. And again, I think just the abundance of buildings, the abundance of space, I don't think there's going to be any real estate crisis. I think you're just going to be able to pick the building that you want to live in, pick the landing zone you want to be at, and then you just decorate the interior. I mean, there's just so much real estate in cities in the game that the game currently does not have enough players for there to be a real estate problem. Okay, yes, maybe Final Fantasy 14 and WoW have that problem because those games are built on small maps, 50 square kilometers, 200 square kilometers. I don't know how big Final Fantasy 14 is, but let's say it's 500 square kilometers. That's nothing in Star Citizen. It's not even a moon. In Star Citizen, Hurston is 12 million square kilometers. You want to compare 500 square kilometers to 12 million square kilometers? Real estate is not a problem in Star Citizen. It's just not. There's just way too much space. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you guys think that CIG is gonna, do this or do that? Let me know what you guys think CIG is gonna do. Okay, like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like it. Hit the notification bell if you want to know when I post a video again, because I want to get regular, but try to do maybe 2 videos a week, but we'll see. I really appreciate you guys supporting videos. You guys have been rock stars. You guys have been killing it. But yeah, I'll see you guys the next time. Salute.